And the time has come for me to offer my thought leadership in another sport I know nothing about. That is, of course, NHL. We have the hockey playoffs kicking off here soon, and Underdog, like always, has hooked us up with a playoff best ball contest. I recently got red pilled on the NBA contest, the dance. I, of course, love the gauntlet. And today, my guy, DJ Mitchell, true NHL thought leader, is going to walk me through strategy for the Zamboni, give me a bird's eye view of what's going on in the playoffs. He's even going to explain things in terms only a dumb football bro like me could understand. What's the zero RB of the Zamboni? Today, we find out on Best Ball Breakfast.
Oh, another Influencer 101 for the backward hats, bro. Rigged!
Zach Ertz with no Tyler Algier bringback? Yikes.
You reached around for correlation? That's a no-no. You ADP bros disgust me. How about you just live a little?
Handcuffing might actually be a way to get unique if the field's avoiding it.
The Wi-Fi at this resort is a disaster?
These fucking streamers don't have player takes. What if a piss boy draft is the room you need?
Oh!
All right, DJ, I feel like this has been long overdue. I want to say you slid into my DMs maybe last year around this time, offering to do a draft. And I don't want to say I was brushing you off. I think I was truly swamped and wasn't able to pull it off. But I was not going to let this hockey season go by without the two of us getting together on stream. So welcome to the show, my man.
Yeah, I mean, everything with you is you got to prove it first. You know, I know that with NHL right now, there's no way I could possibly get on bowls without a million maker to get me there. So I had to get into the streets, get 6 into the finals, take down the Underdog regular season for the invite. And I understand that. I mean, that's the way it should work in this country. Am I right? So I'm ready. Let's go. Finally, we're into the playoffs. And like everyone that I get a lot of people that are like, you know, I never talked about, never looked at hockey. I got into the betting because it seemed a little bit exploitable, because it is. And I am hooked, and the playoffs are the time. So I'm hoping people are going to give it a go, give it a chance, watch a bunch of grown men on knives with sticks, try to beat the heck out of each other for the Stanley Cup, the best trophy in sports. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and I referenced it, DJ referenced it, but if you're all the puck guys in the chat know your credentials, but you did win the season-long best ball contest for hockey on Underdog. You have single-handedly paid for all of my playoff contests with your Pick'em hockey slips. You have become a favorite follow for those of us in the Underdog Pick'em streets. I have DJ's Twitter handle down below. He normally gives out 1 to 2 slips a night. I'm putting a lot of pressure on you, not financial advice, but DJ wins more than he loses there with those pickup slips. So I've very much been enjoying tailing you on those.
Thank you. No, it's what I love to do. And like, I do this to grow the sport, to get on bowls one day, like until we have a million maker. So I have to get everyone in the hockey streets. It's the only way.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. So the top prize in the Zamboni is 20,000. So you're, 1/20th to a Lowell's appearance and 1/40th away from a Karain. Is you got to win 40 of these Zambonis is what you got to do.
It's coming quickly. Right. Coming quick.
Willis, we got the chat popping tonight. No Bo Sox is hype for hockey here. Willis wants to know, because I did famously grow up in Denver. The Avs winning that championship was very fun. The Patrick Waugh years, the brawls with Detroit. I have a little hockey knowledge up my sleeve, but is this just a coincidence, or are you pandering to my nascent?
You told me you're an Avs fan. I had to put it on. I mean, I have I could bring the camera. I have a closet full of jerseys. I am I think Brian, right? He hates jerseys infamously. I'm a bit of a collector. I got really into it during the pandemic, just trying to collect. So this was pandering, 100%.
Awesome. Well, let's so this is going to be the structure for the show. We are going to do a high-level overview of what the Zamboni contest is for those of you who don't know. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the dynamics of the NHL playoffs. I know things, at least in the NBA streets, were constantly getting flipped on their head with the play-in game and how that impacted drafts. So we'll touch on that. Then we are going to explain Zamboni strategy to me in layman's terms, aka NFL terms. I had DJ whip up a doc similar to what the Badge Bros did for me when I was doing my first Dinger draft. I found that very helpful to understand what the zero RB of baseball was. And then we're going to rip a few drafts and circle back on a great article that DJ wrote as well. I've linked to that down below as well. It's the keys to the Zamboni. But let's just start right here off the gate. If people are not familiar with these playoff contests with the Zamboni, what's kind of the main things we're looking at here?
I personally, because the contest now is, I think it think it times 4 last year. It was 4K to first last year. I think it made it 4 times bigger. I think it's going to be even more important to correlate to the finals. The team that won it last year, I'm 99.9% positive he is in the Deposit Kingdom, Samuelson. He took it down with like an Eastern Conference Finals with a few Avalanche, and that might have gotten away last year. And luckily, he was just got a goalie through. This year, I think it's going to be even more important to correlate personally. Not to get insane, but I think if you're drafting teams that aren't building a Western Eastern Conference final with plenty to get you into that finals with your, you should have a favorite 2 in that situation. You're probably doing it wrong. Hockey is very random with who's going to score, but power plays are infinitely important, and stacking players that are never going to see the power play. You do get an additional, I think you get actually, do you get an additional point in this tournament? You did in the regular season. I assume you do. Yeah. Power play point, you get a half a point. I think focusing on those, you can just go to daily face-off. They're pretty accurate. Things might change, but most of the guys will stay the same. Definitely building it just like I assume every other playoff. NFL, same thing. I know the Brock Purdy snipers were out and you couldn't get that perfect correlation, which in this build, like you just need to abandon. If you like were to lose on Brock Purdy, for example, you just got to abandon ship. Like if you're stacking a team and someone comes in and is like, nope, I'm actually going to stack them at the turn, give up, because you got to get enough players to that final to give you a chance at 20K. And if you're not playing for 20K, why are you playing is my opinion. Don't be afraid to get unique. Hockey playoffs are incredibly random as well. I think it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago when the quote unquote best NHL team in history, the Tampa Bay Lightning, took they were the most points ever. They go and play Columbus. Everyone thought it was just a walk in the park and they get swept. This year, Boston does the same thing. I'm not saying their fate will be the same because it shouldn't be, but they play last year's President's Trophy winning Florida Panthers in the first round. So it's not like it's crazy to think anything can happen. And every single year we see a random team make a run. Don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone, take any team, make sure you're building some fun stacks. And other than that, I mean, look at the roster construction: 1 center, 1 winger, 1 D, 1 goalie, 2 flex. So you can get a bit unique, and you don't need to, like in the regular season where you really had to overstack on, get as many wings as possible because multiple scored. You don't need to be that crazy. You can spread out the way you're drafting the 12 guys and know that your 2 flexes can come from anywhere but goalie.
Yeah, and I guess I've always understood that about hockey as well, that there is a lot more randomness in the playoffs than in some other sports, or at least compared to the NBA, where the best teams do tend to advance. I've heard from many people that all it takes is a goalie, getting hot at the right time, and that team can go on a run. So would you say more than the NBA, where some of these guys tell me, like, if you're not building for Sixers, Bucks, or the Celtics in the championship, like, you're going to be dead because they're the only teams that can viably get there. But it sounds like in hockey, you can tell yourself stories where 7th seeds, 6 seeds, even 8 seeds potentially go on a run. And to me, that opens up the entire board from a drafting angle, if that's true.
I think so. I mean, I'm definitely drafting that way. As we've finally got to we know every team in the playoffs now. As of last night, 100%, actually 2 nights ago, 100% every team. I mean, I'm starting to take some Islanders. Like, I don't care. I know that they're not the highest scoring team. I know round 1 against Carolina is really tough, but Carolina lost both of their top goal scorers. I have no problem. If I completely miss on Boston and Boston wins the cup, I'm completely dead regardless. Like, I missed Boston, so why not take Florida? I mean, what's the scenario where they get by them? Well, Bobrovsky comes back and plays well. And if Bobrovsky plays well, that team is just as good as Boston, in my opinion. I know Boston I might be biased as a Sabres fan against them and rooting against them. And that might be feeding into this, but they are the best team in the league. And if you pull up the percentages here of moving on to that second round, what's Florida, like 40-something% to 60-something%?
Okay, yeah.
And that's pretty, and this is a few days old because it still had the Sabres with 2, but we didn't update it. But more or less, it's not that great. It really is going to be that way over a 7-game series, where any good model is going to tell you it's 40-60 is pretty accurate.
So I think another big question, I know we're kind of, actually, real quick, we need to do a coffee pour. It is 10 a.m. I mean, we can't. I mean, I need some, and I heard you have a special. You're going to show me up with your apparatus. Oh my goodness.
It's just a pour over thing.
Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, no, we gotta.
All right. Now we're ready to go. The next thing, and I realize we're jumping around, but one thing I wanted to ask is a huge dynamic in understanding the differences between the NFL playoff and NBA was what kind of fringe contributors on teams can do for you. Like we saw in the playoffs, MVS, Kenneth Gainwell, these guys who were last round picks go off for massive scores, help you advance, and on really good teams that made it to the Super Bowl. Now in the NBA, sometimes I've been told like, Peter, don't take Grant Williams. Why are you taking Grayson Allen? These guys are dust balls that are very thin to score in your lineup. Where does hockey fall on that spectrum of like ancillary pieces being able to crack your starting lineup?
I think it's a lot more team by team dependent. I think you can make a case sometimes for certain players. It really, I think you have to say it's because there's some teams that there's a core three, and then there's like a fourth guy that could jump in. While I think Boston is a good example of a team that I really struggle to find a reason why I'm going to take too much Pavel Zacha, or I don't want to get too, I guess, in the weeds on player names right now, but these guys that are getting drafted in every single lobby that just aren't going to see power play one, they could easily get boxed out of the top 6 without any problem at all. As like Florida, on the other hand, they kind of spread their wealth a bit more. And you can get guys like Sam Reinhart, who had over 30 goals last year for free. And this is a piece that is maybe in theory a third liner, but that's not how Florida plays. So like Boston will run 4 lines more or less. And then that third line piece is not going to bump up. If Florida's losing, Reinhardt's just going to be out there with Barkov and Verhaeghe and Matt Tkachuk. Like it's not like they. So I feel like with basketball, it's probably similar, where a team is very quick to bench player X for player Y if that player isn't performing on some teams. While on other teams, that starting 5 is just not going to really budge. They're going to give them a little more run, a little more leeway. So I really think you have to go team by team with this. I could try to go team by team very quickly, but I think that's going to take up too much time.
I would say that,
yeah.
But like hearing what you said earlier, where you said you think, really leaning into these correlations makes a ton of sense. To me, that's saying, yes, some of these ancillary pieces who might not just project super well in a vacuum, like if you're just averaging their expected, because I assume you have the same problem, right? Where you're looking at a median projection for them for the playoffs, and that's assuming a team, maybe only plays 7 or 8 games. But if they get hot and go to the finals, that 4th, 5th piece or whatever could easily be the piece that you need in the contest.
Yeah, honestly, I think the perfect way to put it is there are 3 teams. There are 3 total teams in your draft window that are difficult to get as many players as you really, well, not as many players as you want, but a majority of the players you're going to want. And that's Boston, Colorado, and Edmonton. And I wrote a lot about them in that article, where you can't, early on you could get McDavid and Draisaitl. That's pretty much gone. If you get it, you should just post the GM on Twitter, because it's going to be incredibly difficult. I mean, same today, I got a McKinnon Rantanen. Almost impossible throughout the entire lobbying of the entire thing through the 35% full we're at now. Boston, now you're kind of getting some Bergeron Marchand. I don't know if it's not that it isn't worth taking a guy here or there, like mainly a guy like Krejci though. And like, that's the thing is like with Boston, you can still get a power play 1 Krejci well after guys like Zacha, and people are taking Dmitry Orlov still, like this 3rd defenseman in. I don't really buy doing that when there's still guys like Krejci way at the back end. I don't want to, but any other team on this entire board you're looking at, there is no need to try to make a case for a guy that maybe hits more. Just like you have all the power play pieces free.
You mentioned those the 3 teams. It's Colorado, Boston, and Edmonton, right? Because that's not tracking with like those aren't all the top seeded teams, right? I'm asking very dumb questions, so I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, if Colorado wins tonight, they'll bump up to the 1, and Dallas will move down. I think that's likely. I don't think it matters. It's more of the top end pieces. So like David Pastrnak on Boston to me is so much better. We tried to make it happen with Boston. We tried to make Bergeron happen. It kind of did this year. He was good for his age and everything. He's so invaluable to that team that getting him from the start is that important. I don't think I need to say too much about Connor McDavid. If I do, you've never watched a single hockey game. This is the best player.
You might need to say something about Connor McDavid.
150 points. I really would like to describe his level of dominance in this sport with where it's at today. And I just don't think there is a comparable, but I'm biased. I mean, you could say Mahomes, but I think he's even better than that. It's just the impact Mahomes has on his team is so much higher because of the quarterback position. And then Colorado with McKinnon. I mean, McKinnon is I didn't put it on the sheet or anything, but he's kind of like a Tyreek Hill, where he is such a high volume guy. But when it hits, when he gets those touchdowns, that's when you get those spike days and the NHL spike days and essentially weeks that could blow the doors open, because he's going to, I mean, this year, him and Pasternak were the 2 highest rate shooters in the league. And when that happens and that comes together. So I think it's more of that as well, that they have such clear impact top players that if they do move forward are going to be 100%. I mean, you have to have pieces. So that's why I think it's kind of coming down to that. Like the best teams with that. I know Florida has Matt the Chuck, similar guy, but their advance is just a lot tougher to see.
That, and it is crazy. Like looking at right now, pulled up the rankings here, which is basically just the ADP for the contest right now. And every single guy you can see on my screen is from one of those 3 teams, except we have one outlier here from Toronto, Matthews, who squeaks in there.
Yeah. And,
so
I mean,
that's
it's definitely moved
nuts
that
that
way
it's that
over
concentrated.
Time. That's what I mean. Like I tell people that haven't started, like it's that crazy, and then they get in the lobby and I'll get a DM. I'm like, holy crap. I'm like, yeah, no, it's way worse than you. There are every other team you could have for no money. And once you, like, I've seen people now, like just starting with like Jason Robertson, who I think is just off the screen right now, and Dallas, and just like, now you have Dallas. No one's going to touch them, and they're yours. And that is number 1 seed right now, and it could stay that way. And this is a team that, if they won the cup, no one would bat an eye. And it's very interesting. I can't think of, it just doesn't work like that in the NFL, where I think people can so easily make a case for another team. And then you get to hockey where it's just so random and no one can do it.
So what I'm hearing, or actually, let me ask the first part of a question. Like, what are the odds that you think, is there a chance that like the winning team or even the top 2 teams in the finals, like don't involve either of these 3 teams that everyone is going out of their way to target? Like, I guess like on what percentage scale, like if you had to attribute it, is like, I think you're going to need a couple of these top 12 guys on the 3 popular teams, or is it viable to like full fade and build out other stacks?
I'm not really full fading, because I do think that because of how many points they're going to score in the first couple rounds, like even if they don't make it to the cup final. So if you take McDavid number 1 and someone decides I'm going all in on Edmonton, you lose out on Edmonton, you get maybe 2 pieces. Yeah. Just look at that other side of the bracket. Look at that other Western Conference team that you might want to pick out. That's completely free. I mean, Vegas, perfect example. This team has won the West. They are the number 1 seed in the West. No one's drafting them. So I'm on the wrong side. Go back to, we could go Minnesota they're completely free. Pro Kaprizov, one of my favorite players. So you already started with McDavid and I don't know, let's say Hyman. Someone took Stuart Skinner from you, so you lost your goalie, and you build Minnesota, and Minnesota makes that cup final. Like, you're going to be unbelievably unique with that kind of Western Conference build. So that's kind of how I'm doing it, or just taking 2 or 3 Edmonton players, knowing that McDavid's that valuable, that having him, and if he goes to the cup, it's just like, no doubt in my mind, a must-have, and building an Eastern Conference final that won last year. Kind of a similar build to exactly what we saw win last year. If Edmonton sweeps in 4 or something in the conference finals, and you get, I don't know, whatever you want to say on the Eastern Conference side, you have 2 goalies. As long as one gets to the finals, you're fine. I kind of made that clear point of that in my article, that the losing goalie in the Stanley Cup final outscored the winning goalie, which is kind of crazy to think. A little bit, right? Yeah, it's kind of hard to see, but the only 1 team had the Stanley Cup winning goalie in the finals, because Darcy Kemper got hurt last year. He got hit with a stick to the eye through his mask. One of the weirdest injuries I've ever seen. But yeah, the losing goalie in Vasilevsky outscored the winning goalie just because of saves, really. And Colorado had so many shots on net in that series. So you don't need to have the winning goalie to win the whole thing. So even if you miss your goalie on Colorado, if someone takes Georgiev, if someone takes Stuart Skinner, just take 2 on the Eastern Conference side that can get to the Eastern Conference finals. You get 1 to the final, and you're probably fine.
So my follow-up question to kind of understanding how many of these teams are actually live for a deep run, how kind of off the board can you get? Where do we fall on the David Kitchen live a little spectrum for this contest? Because I know with the NBA, I've been kind of told like, hey, if you're reaching too much, you're probably giving up too many projected points. The studs are the studs, and you might find yourself in trouble. Does it seem like you can kind of bounce around here and go and get your teams and focus more on correlation than ADP, or where is the balance for that in this contest?
I'm certainly reaching more than most. I in most lobbies, not to an extreme amount, but I I quit early on my stacks when I know it's not going well, and most people won't. And that's, I think, my edge, where people will force in, like I'm saying, third and fourth liners that are moving up the boards because they're trying to build those stacks. I'm saying, whatever. I have 2-3 pieces for an Eastern Conference final, Boston. I'm going to go to the other side, and I'm just going to take whatever team you want to say, and just go all in on them. So I'm reaching a little bit more. I mean, yeah, like look at Jack Hughes and Miko Zibanejad are perfect examples on the other side from Boston. No one that takes Boston is taking those guys, and they're going, and they're taking Hampus Lindholm, they're taking Taylor Hall a little bit early, etc. It's like, scroll up a little bit, but yeah, the Tyler Bertuzzi's, these guys. It's like, well, you know what? Fine, you want all the Boston. They might sweep Florida in the first round and not advance at a high rate, and I'm going to try to move forward David Pastrnak and Jake DeBrusk with the other side. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. Then again, if Boston is what you needed and they get lucky, they get lucky. I find it really hard to believe in this format, getting that advancement in the first round is going to be super high with a ton of players that just aren't going to contribute enough till the finals, as you're saying.
Where are you at on having teams, players from teams who are playing each other in the first round? I know in the NBA streets, people have been talking a little bit about
0%. Zero.
You need to have Oppo 0 on your stacks.
I accidentally did one, and I posted about it. Like, don't do this. This is a mistake. I clicked the wrong guy. My bad. Like, I think it's if you do it one time individually, I mean, you might be fine because that series goes to 7 or whatever. But I can't imagine more than one ever, because what is the point? Like, we're playing for 20K and we're going to take a guy that can score in one round. I don't see it personally, because I don't know. I don't really know enough about the basketball scoring to feel like I'm going to give a great say on this, but you're basically saying that one player that gets eliminated is going to have such an incredible peak performance in the first round that they had to move on, which I just don't think is going to be the case, especially with how many teams are just so dead. I mean, people are taking like 2 backup goaltenders. Like, I mean, I think that if you're jumping into these Zamboni drafts and you've been in the NFL streets and the NBA streets, you are going to be unbelievably surprised by how stupid people are. Like, you don't need to be,
I guess, like, the comparison, and this is where you can tell me if like this dynamic can even play out in hockey. It's Gabe Davis 2021 playoffs where he goes nuclear for 45 points. The Bills lose, but you did need Gabe Davis to advance. Like, it's always wondering, is that dynamic possible in hockey in this format?
I don't think it's enough.
Okay.
I just don't think it's quite enough. There's just, I mean, how many goals would you have to score? It just seems it seems kind of crazy to me that the scoring is just not enough for me to think that is necessary. I'm not doing it. If it costs me, it costs me. I can't imagine it's going to cost me enough, especially because I'll have probably more exposure to a lot of the guys that you might be thinking of that are like these not as likely to advance teams. So I just think, again, like, I don't know. I could see a scenario where it might happen, but I don't think it's enough. Let's get to this. I'm going to talk too long on it.
Yeah.
That's an interesting point. I actually really hadn't thought about it much because I just hadn't done it.
Yeah. All right. So I asked DJ to make this, NHL for football dummies comparison to help me understand this. So we're going to walk through this. If you are listening to this in audio version, I recommend checking out the doc. I'll drop a link to this doc in the show notes when the show is over as well. But let's start right at the top. We talked a little bit about it with stacking. I think I understand this. Like, I am trying to get as many stud players from 2 finals teams as possible, really at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. And I don't think I made this point maybe clear enough, but having a goalie that makes the cup final, I think, is just undeniable. We did some adjustments to the rankings on Puck Luck today. And we don't have to pull them up right now if you don't have it, but the starting goalie's got a really big bump, because what we realized is it was kind of thinking the backup goalies would feed in more than they are. So all of the goalies have kind of catapulted to the top because they are going to score a lot of points. Like, a player is going to need to be unfathomably good to outscore a goalie, and getting to the finals without any goalie is just never going to be good. And the same thing to go with taking backup goalies. Like, if you're taking Jeremy Swayman, Olmark has to get hurt. You're just never going to get anywhere. That would be like taking, I think in football, it'd be like taking a quarterback that was like Minshew last year, and just like, okay, well, no. So yeah,
like
I think
taking
it's
Trey
really,
Lance.
really important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't talk about it. I had so much Trey Lance. Yeah, no, I just want to make that point really clear. And like I said, if you miss your goalie early, just get the other conference side. So if you started with, Boston and you miss Olmark, which is very likely, go to the Western Conference, get 2 on that side, funnel them through. You could be okay.
And is we were looking at the starting lineup requirements earlier. Another thing that we've talked about is filling a full lineup, because we were talking about this with the Waltz, which is the smaller version of the dance, in that the final, I think, is only 8 teams, and someone could probably realistically win that without a full starting lineup. I'm wondering with the Zamboni, 1, how big is the finals? And 2, do you think a full starting lineup will be needed to take this down? Or is there potential that, depending on how the thing breaks, that maybe you could be missing a guard or whatever in your lineup, or a guard, Jesus,
60, yeah, it's a 62-person final. I think you have to, everyone should be building for a potential, and it doesn't have to be one team though. Like it should be 2 teams, and it's just not difficult to do. There are enough. I mean, you just think about, like, that's like a 10-player pool just of like power play kind of really good players, and you can add. I think on defense, it's easier to add an ancillary piece like a Bowen Byram on Colorado, where that player could get blocks, he get shots, will get the floor stats you need in the finals. If you missed on a card, or even if you have them, we'll get to. Actually, I'm gonna get to that later. But yeah, no, I think it's so easy to do that you'd be doing yourself a massive disservice not doing it. Having at least one center, one winger, 1D, 1 goalie, and 2 flex for a finals potential.
Gotcha. Let's just real quick touch on this, the week 17 or the final. The finals, because you do have a note here about an Eastern Conference final stack. We just touch on that quickly.
This is exactly what I went over with the winner last year. Like I just said, I kind of changed it from what you had before. Like the theory of E17 was that one BBM 2, right?
Yes.
So Eastern Conference final stack won last year's playoff Zamboni. So I think people might be looking at that. You could easily replace Eastern with Western and just say either conference final with both goalies on that side, getting to the finals with a few pieces. And I think that that's a really good strategy anyways. So yeah, just making sure you're building viable conference final, Stanley Cup final, full rosters is fun. But people aren't doing it enough because I don't know why. Like people, like I'm saying, like if you start and you were saying, I'm building a Dallas, Boston, you miss Linus Ullmark, people are just taking Jeremy Swayman, the backup goalie for Boston. He might score 0. He might start 1 game. He might not be valuable. You could have instead taking Connor Hellebuck, for example, Winnipeg Jets goalie. What if he ends up getting there? He's going to be, I don't want to get too in the weeds on player takes, but that's my point, is taking 2 goalies on one side and kind of stacking in that realm to get to the finals with those other pieces, I think is the week 17 theory that I think a lot of sharper players are playing with.
So from a roster construction, as I'm understanding it, it seems like goalies are like the quarterbacks, right? Where you can always, like in football, like you need that quarterback who's playing in the Super Bowl to have a chance to win. But there's always a Justin Watson. There's always a, dare I say, Sky Moore that you can tack on. It does seem like at the end of the day, you do need to make sure your goalie has a path to the finals and you're building around that story.
Hold on, scroll down one more really quick, because I think we put we put them together. We
perfect.
made goalie running back. Yeah. Which I actually, it's funny because I had them as quarterback, and I talked to Matt Moody, former Fantasy Insiders back in the day. And he convinced me to go goalie running back, where it's because there are some goalies that are so like 100% lockdown, but there's only so many of those. So if you kind of go team by team and you're looking through, not every team, we're 100% confident. And if you go back to the last Morning Skate podcast episode, we go through every team and their goalie situation. There are certain goalies that are your bell cow running backs. Whereas we kind of know the starting quarterbacks and there's really no leash on them in the playoffs. Goalies, there's definitely some that they have a bad game or two, they're gone. They're right on the bench and the next guy's up. So we made that comparison, but I do see what you're saying, where if you're building a viable finals roster, it has to have that goalie, which is the same with the quarterback. So I guess both of them make sense, and that's kind of where our heads were at. I like the idea of 2 over 1. I know some people that like the idea of taking 1 goalie over 2. I think last year's final advancement rates were almost 50-50 on that, where teams had 1 goalie or 2. But those teams that had 1 goalie, all of them had Igor Shesterkin was the most popular player in the finals, which was the goalie for the Rangers, who didn't make it. So yes, they got there, but then they were dead. And they maybe if they just would have instead figured out a way to get, Darcy Kemper probably would have been impossible, but making, that adjustment, I think going forward where things might not work out the same way as last year, I think is going to be better. And getting to the finals without having enough points from goalie is going to be very difficult with the field being much bigger.
Gotcha.
Other than that, I don't think there's too much. Someone asked in the Discord about defensemen. If you have that picture that I sent you just before we started.
Oh,
I
yeah.
Kind of just really, yeah. So this was done by Count MC, by the way, and we just did a few edits to it. He is one of the better underdog players, especially in the NHL streets. This was just showing the points per game by players. And like, if you look at the centers, they scored a lot more than even your best defenseman per game on average. And that UFP per game thing. And these are just for playoff teams. So his point was like, well, look at the floor stats defensemen can get. Can't they just outscore? It's like, I mean, anything can happen, but I don't think it's valuable enough to say I'm going to take 4 or 5 defensemen because of those floor stats. Like that to me seems crazy. You're just cutting yourself at the knees there. So that's why if we go back to the thing, we went with centers as our super flex quarterbacks because you need multiple of them. They score so many points, especially the top ones, that it's very worth it to get a few of the top guys to fill in those flex positions because anyone could be a flex.
All right. Well, now I'm experiencing some dissonance here because if you're telling me wingers or wide receiver, it seems like the most important are these goalies, these centers. Are you telling me that wingers, the wide receivers of the puck, aren't that hot of a commodity?
I mean, you're just again, you're looking at the one season sample size of last year, whereas the year before, Jonathan Taylor was pretty good. He was it's not perfect. There's no perfect here because it really is just certain players are so much better in hockey than the rest of the field that it kind of makes it almost unrealistic. I know it's hard because it's all about the wide receivers and I'm saying the wingers, and that makes more sense in the regular season where wingers are there's more roster spots for them, but I don't think it's a good comparison here, but I went with my best.
Let's go rapid fire through the rest of these so we can hop in a draft.
Yeah.
Pissing Yellow drafting Boston and Colorado. That's kind of chalk, right? Where you're just like going all in on that.
Yeah, and don't need much explanation. More, we'll see it. Zero.
Tell
RB
me zero RB. What's the zero RB of hockey?
Yes. So if you draft Pastrnak, you're 99.9% not going to get Ullmark. So just sort of not getting that goalie to correlate with your top guys, especially where I'm kind of saying Pasta and Rantanen are wingers, wide receivers. It's really hard to get Rantanen and Georgiev. So you're kind of going a different direction. And like I said, there's still viable options to make that work. And I'm doing it quite a bit.
So RB dead zone, ADP 30 and after for goalie. Intuitively, though, the way you were talking about goalie, how goalies can get hot, how these kind of fringe teams can go on a run, to me, it almost feels like a more of a zero RB target in that this guy could get thrusted into a starting role and all of a sudden be a league winner.
Yeah.
Do you not like drafting, though, the late goalies?
No, I kind of play the cards that are dealt, and some lobbies you get the high T drafters, which is the next one. I've seen people at the turn take Ullmark and Georgiev. I've seen people, the people that'll take Vasilevsky at pick 12 just to make sure they get a good starter. And when people are doing that, you just got to change your narrative. You got to change your mindset. You just got to go to, all right, things are going to be random. So let the cards fall as they will. If you can get your goalie easily without any problem, no issue. And it really is more a team by team basis with goaltender, where there's some teams, and I could rattle them off, but we'll get into a draft and it'll be a lot easier. That there's almost no way that goalie is going to lose their starting job without an injury. And there are some teams that one game could make a swap. So after that 30 ADP, you kind of lose out on all the guys that are just either potentially likely to win or more likely to win and automatic starters after that 30 range.
Gotcha. Let's hit on these player comps real quick, and then we'll hop in a draft here. Josh Allen, Austin Matthews. The upside is to the moon, but the team does not get it done in the playoffs. What other ones of these jump out here? I mean, I'm triggered already seeing a Kyle Pitts comparison. I have to draft.
Yeah.
How do I say it? Kirill?
Kirill Kaprizov. Yeah. Okay. So Josh Allen, I think, the Maple Leafs haven't made it to the second round of the playoffs since 2006. I know. Yeah, no, let me explain Kaprizov. You got to read it first. But Kale McCarr, Kelsey is he really is kind of an alien. I know that there were defensemen this year that outscored him in the regular season, but none of them made the playoffs. So he really becomes, I think, the clear-cut number one tight end defenseman. Then Dougie is kind of next. So I'm saying in an alternate reality where Kyle Pitts is really, really good, that's Kirill Kaprizov. I can't quit drafting him. He's on a team that not many people believe in, but man, the skill and ability, like if you watch Minnesota, if you like don't know the players, you're just going to see this guy like, this is the greatest player in the world. Like this, and then, if only Kyle Pitts got there, then we'd be like, perfect. See, we could see it happening. We watched it. There he is.
I love it.
Sense,
and we got some other studs up here at the top, a Devontae Adams, a Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked a little bit about Pasternak, just like the total crusher and all in boss of these hockey streets.
And like I kind of said, it's like everyone wanted to make a case for Thielen, Irvin, Osborne, and it was always Justin Jefferson. We didn't really need anyone else. So I'm really high on that. And then Matt Tkachuk is like, he hits, he gets power play points, he has 50 goals. I mean, everything you'd want and more. If only the Raiders were any good.
All right. Actually, real quick, one thing I wanted to tell you, DJ. So my college buddies, they're not really into drafting a ton, but they love the Underdog pick'em slips. They're always asking me for pick'em slips. And ever since I introduced specifically my buddy Rich to your hockey slips, like he shares them constantly with me. I share them with him. But the other thing is we want to do a futures bet on a couple teams in the playoffs. We've been doing it. We hit Argentina in the World Cup. We hit UConn. Okay. And so we're kind of on a bit of a heater here, but we said, hey, we're not placing this until I talk to our guy, DJ. So a little change of pace here, but do you have any dark horse teams that you think would be fun to place a futures bet on?
Yeah. I mean, puckluck.com really likes Seattle, and I could see that narrative. I'm going to probably double back a little bit more. I do. Let me pull up the bracket again really quick. Let me take a peek. I mean, this is every year, I flag plan a couple teams, and last year my team was Florida, and I was like, they're going all the way, and they folded on us. I think some of the better bets in general, you want like a cup final winner. That's what you're saying? Like
trying to hit kind of like
final.
Maybe not top 4 or 5 odds, but someone where, the payday would be pretty fun.
Man, I would say I personally would either go with Seattle for randomness. I think that's going to be the longest odds one, or I go the Devils. Honestly, I'm starting to just fall in love with that team. Those are probably the two I think that are pretty out there. I can't really justify anything else. I think the East is honestly like everyone is just so into like this. Everyone the fight for the East, and I know it was a big narrative. It was like these teams all loaded up there. And just no one's going to bet the Western Conference to win the Stanley Cup final. And I think that's a big mistake. So I think my betting is primarily going to be focused on a couple teams in the West where no one believes in any of these teams. So you know what? I'm going to flag plant Seattle with puckluck.com. That was their big thing. I'll double back, though. I'll make sure we got everything in there correctly. And I think I'm going to put a bet on them. They are a lot better than I think people give them credit for. One of the best defensive teams in the league. It's just if the goaltending comes through or not. And if it comes through, they're going to be really good.
Love it. All right, here. I just hopped in a draft. I don't know. I'm messing with the screen share. I might go back to it if this is too much. But from the 1-6, what do we need to start worrying about here?
I mean, I want to give a good answer, but it's so like these lobbies are so random that it's hard. Like today I had the 1-6 and Nathan McKinnon got there. I mean, you just don't know. I would say most likely you're kind of making a decision. I mean, I don't hate the idea of doing the Draisaitl Matthews at the turn. If they're both there, it gets a little bit unique to start. And I don't think you have to build around Edmonton for Draisaitl to be incredibly useful. If they just beat LA in the first round, which is the matchup now, they get to that second round, I think that their path is so easy that a guy like Draisaitl, who scored, like 120 points this year, is very likely going to be useful. So you don't need to go crazy on Edmonton. 1 or 2 guys, you can start building that Eastern Conference Toronto team. And I think you're giving yourself a ton of upside. It's just people don't believe that Toronto can ever advance in the playoffs because they just haven't done it. Has it happened in football? I'm trying to think.
And is including Matthews just naturally making unique because most drafters are still loading up on those top 3 chalk teams at the turn?
Yeah. He's slipping sometimes just because of that too. We're going to get him a bit later, but I mean, this is a different breed of player for sure. I think a lot of people forget about his last year. He had a wrist injury that kind of affected him, and he's a goal scorer. I mean, he's a rate shooting goal scorer guy, so that was really, really impactful. Then late in the year, he still gets the 40 goals without a problem. So I think people are forgetting just how good this guy is.
Yeah.
Last year he was going
all
a
right,
lot early. I think he was we're up next.
All right,
Okay,
we're on the
yeah,
clock. What do you like here?
Yeah, I think we just do the Draisaitl Matthews start.
Okay.
You don't have to really worry about center too much with either team. And I think you're giving yourself a big edge on the field with just how many points these guys are going to score for you in the first round. Like this strategy is really good for advancing. Like if you do this and you build a comparable team, I think your advancement rates are going to be really high just because those two guys are going to score a lot more than the rest of the teams that are drafting those ancillary pieces early for the top three teams.
Gotcha. And then if there is the team, Edmonton or Toronto that gets hot, then you're just all of a sudden lapping some of those other, because not only do you have the studs, but you're kind of matching the expected games for the other top teams.
Yeah, 100%. And again, it's a very narrative. Like if it just wasn't like if you just came in and you like from an outside perspective and you looked at this Toronto team for the past like 3 years and you saw how people just treat them in these lobbies, you'd be like, how is this possible? This is like one of the best teams in the league. They've unfortunately had to play Tampa 3 years in a row in the first round. Tampa is made it to the Cup 3 years in a row. Why can't this year be the year? Tampa's kind of fallen off, a couple injuries late in the season, and still just no one believes that they have a chance because they just haven't done it in so long. Again, it's just like I would rather just go against that narrative completely and say, if I'm building Toronto, they're making it to the Cup finals. And if they make it to the Cup finals, that would be probably the most fun thing in the world to have the Yankees of the NHL sort of in that final. I think it'd be a lot of fun. So I'm for it, even though I'm a Sabres fan.
This was crazy. Before pick 16 here, the teams in the 2, 3, 4, 5 hole were all drafting Colorado in Boston.
Yep.
That's crazy here. So I was wondering, do we take the Edmonton goalie with one of these two? Are we making a big bet on Edmonton?
I think you take Marner and Stuart Skinner right here. And then we don't need, like I said, you don't need to get crazy. Yeah, Mitch Marner is the top guy as well in the
so these two, Mitch Marner. Because
Skinner,
we're
Mitch
just
Marner.
continuing our bet on Toronto and Edmonton. That seems clean.
Lobby's fallen right in line. And this is what happens. Like especially if you're not taking Colorado, Edmonton, or Boston, it's just going to fall right in line. And then no one's even going to fight you because they're too focused on taking, Thomas Nosek and Charlie Coyle for Boston. They're going to get them like 8 points a week. It's like, okay, perfect. I'll still be grabbing the top players.
Right. And so Knox here saying you can get Toronto goalie later.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. Did any of these teams who are going after the 3 big teams who get shut out on goalie, will they ever kind of veer over and take the Toronto goalie, or are they going to be in a different lane?
I've seen it, but they shouldn't. Like I said before we started, I saw a guy take 8 rounds, 8 different teams. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't tell you. Like the guy drafted he took $10 and he might make 15. And good for him, I guess, if he wants that $5.
That happens in all playoff best ball formats. There's always drafters who do that, who can't resist. Like, I'm taking Tyreek Hill, not realizing, that's great, but you're going to get 1 game versus, 4 from, Devonta Smith.
Yeah. I just couldn't tell you. I don't know. I'm playing for 20,000. I'm drafting 150 teams, and that's my goal. That's all I'm thinking about. So it looks to me like we may be getting Evander Kane to get back to us. I don't see him gone yet. So that's likely the pick here for the first. And then, probably just take Nylander and you just continue to build this. And then we can get a little bit unique at the end, I think, to sort of get our a little bit conference finally and a little bit game theory at the end. So, as long as Evander Kane gets back to us, I don't see anyone likely to take him because only one of their guys fighting you in Edmonton, and that's the 101. I think that's probably it.
And then is the only other structural concern here, I assume one of our picks will need to be a defenseman from Toronto or Edmonton to make sure we can fill a hole.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. And they're a little bit difficult. So, let Let me look. We're probably good. Yeah, definitely take Evander Kane. I mean you got to do these two. I don't think there's a doubt. Toronto and Edmonton are a little bit weary on high upside defensemen, so I'm totally down to grab a guy from a different team. I don't know if I want to start giving away those pieces right now because someone else might grab them. What defensemen are gone? Let me take a look. Can you scroll a little bit? Yeah. I mean, do you want me to just mention a few names?
Well, yeah, no, I think it's fine. Whatever.
Okay,
we can just share. But
right.
I'm more just saying, like,
someone screws us.
We want to be able to field a starting lineup with these two teams, right?
Yeah.
Or are you saying we could build out a mini stack that involves just one side of it?
What I'm saying, pull up all defense again. We got a second here. So what I'm saying is, Evan Bouchard is the better fantasy player than Darnell Nurse. I know Darnell Nurse has really good floor stats, but Evan Bouchard's completely taken that power play over, and he's been very, very, very good. He also is just like, trying to think of a tight end that just scores a lot of touchdowns and might not have as many catches as you want. I mean, this guy, when he gets hot, he is scoring goals. He has arguably the hardest shot, one of the hardest shots in the league. I love him. You can get him at like a pick 85. Morgan Riley, 62. So a little bit later. My thought is look at that other side of the East and take a guy like Brent Burns, who is just a fantasy monster. Like, he's probably, if you just took all the defensemen and said which defensemen are going to score the most in round one, he's probably in that top three. So I think you could take him on Carolina. He wouldn't see Toronto until the conference finals, and maybe take one more Carolina piece that no one's taking as well. So we are going to start to get to a situation where there's a lot of players kind of in this range that we want. But taking Evan Bouchard here is probably going to be the most valuable because someone else is fighting us for Edmonton. Ilya Samsonov, if you are concerned about someone just pivoting to a different goalie, it's probably worth just taking now because people will do it. And there's, there goes Burns anyways, but there is enough Toronto still on the board that maybe someone gets crazy and says, I guess I'll take Tavares, Morgan Riley, and Samsonov for the other side. So you might just want to go Samsonov and Bouchard here just to kind of lock in everything we need, and then we can get pretty creative from there.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. If are there builds like this? Because obviously we're very heavily invested in these two teams. Like, we need these guys in the finals, but would there be avenues where you would build out a secondary stack so you were live for an Edmonton alt finals or Toronto alt finals? Is that something you would do?
Yeah. I think that's kind of where my head's at already. I know Burns went, so we might look to it even a different team now. But my head's already thinking, all right, which team on either side could I still get some pieces of to kind of funnel through to a – no, don't go Nurse, go Bouchard.
Oh, oops, my bad.
Samson. Yeah, go.
I'll just get Samson.
Go Samson. Yeah, take Samson. Oh, yeah, go back to defense. Yeah, Evan Bouchard.
Okay.
It's just – yeah, I know the points might not look it, but this guy is taken over. They traded Tyson Barrie to get Ekholm, which basically meant they took a guy that's a fantasy kind of upside player, power play guy, moved him out to bring in a very good defender, and then Evan Bouchard got the huge increase. So I think he's going to be very, very relevant with this Edmonton team. And the one thing about what we're building, though, is that Toronto and Edmonton are like – I'm trying to think of a good comparison. It's probably actually better with football. So, like, if you think about an NFL team that is trying to win defensively and trying to win lower scoring games, that is not Toronto and Edmonton. Toronto and Edmonton are trying to win 7-5. So stacking them and them getting to the finals is a lot different than going with Boston, who is fine shutting teams down. Carolina, they want to shut you down. It's a lot harder to see massive stacks of them continuously advancing through and still being optimal. So that's why if you're taking Carolina, you might want to only take kind of a more skinny stack, 3-4 guys, and then sort of build in another team in the East to get you there. That is like a Tampa, Toronto, Florida on the other side. Those three teams you're going to see 6.5, 7 totals every night in the playoffs.
Okay, that makes sense. And so now, as I understand, like, we are set for our finals lineup. So I guess then the question, is there any further correlation with these teams that we would be interested in building out? Or is it now let's just YOLO best players and know that these will help us advance, and then we already have our finals matchup set?
Yeah, I think I'll let you make the call there. If you want to grab Morgan Riley.
Let me make the call. This is my first draft, DJ. Take the wheel.
You got a lot of options. Honestly, Where is Tavares still there? No, someone took Tavares.
Yeah.
Really, yeah, the only piece left is Morgan Riley. That's the last one. I think you grab him and then we get weird. So I would, queue him up. And then from there, looking at, let's look. We have what? 2-3, 2-2. We probably want another defenseman. I guess if you want me to stick with my flag plant, Seattle, they're on the other side. They would likely play. Like I said, they're likely going to play Colorado in the first round. So thinking that Colorado fails, we could take a McCann and a Vince Dunn with 2 of these picks, and taking Jared McCann first, I guess, 40 goal scorer. I'm for it. We just say that. And I think this is going to get very unique to these builds. Like the build that we have here is going to be done. People are going to have this type of build. It's just very easy, natural, kind of flows right into ADP, where I don't think people are going to run it back with Seattle very often at all, because they're just going to look at Colorado. They're going to be scared. This is a Colorado team that just got the news their captain, Landeskog, is not coming back for the playoffs. A team that has a goaltender in Georgiev that has been really good, but last year was terrible in stretches. So I don't really think that this is anywhere near a lock. It's also a team that hasn't seen Cale Makar in weeks, and he should be back, but is he going to be 100%? There's such an easy way to build that this Seattle team that is absolutely rolling, that has a lot of really good young talent and is super defensively structured, could take them out in round 1, and no one's going to do it. They're just going to go undrafted for both lobbies.
Yeah. All right. That makes sense. And I'm getting excited about this Seattle call that you're making here. And John, kind of confirming what you were saying about these pace up teams, Kings and Warriors, who I know a lot of people are excited about going for a shit ton of points in a 7-game series. So I like what we're building here.
Yeah, that is 100%. I mean, I want to think of an NFL comparison, but it's hard. It's kind of like Chiefs. I don't know, because the Chiefs are so good. It's like hard to think of teams in the NFL that score a ton of points that aren't maybe like, oh, these teams are obviously like Super Bowl contenders, because I feel like Toronto just isn't being looked at enough by the general public. I think the analytics community is like, this team is great. This team could definitely get there. They made all the right moves at the deadline. And all of the general public is like, yeah, but it's Toronto. It's Drake Curse. I mean, they're not getting there, So I don't know. I think that it's good to funnel the. Yep. What were you saying?
Are all these Boston guys I still see here, are these just like super fringe, deep down the roster plays, but because people love Boston so much, they're still taking these guys?
I think Bertuzzi's had kind of moved his way up and Zaka down, and Zaka had a really, really good year. I don't want to take anything away from him, but I think a lot of this is just original ADP on these guys was really high. Early in drafts, they were going very, very early comparatively to now, where I think people have kind of taken a step back. Jeremy Swayman's also jumped way up the boards. I don't really get it. We're on the clock now. If you want to take that, take Vince Dunn. He's the Seattle defenseman you want.
Yep.
And then how many centers? We have 2. Yeah. I mean, if you want to take one more Seattle guy, it's got to be Matt Beniers, rookie sensation. We would never. I say we just do it.
Because I mean, did we get the 3 best non-goalies on Seattle with these picks?
I'd say yes and no. I mean, Matt Beniers is a points monster. Is more of a points guy than a rates guy. But if that actually comes together, like Oliver Bjorkstrand, but we just don't need another winger. Bjorkstrand's more of a I'm going to shoot the puck guy. You could argue, you could get crazy with Seattle, take Jaden Schwartz. Like, they really have McCann, who is their main goal scorer, the main guy they want shooting the puck, and then a bunch of guys that funnel in. They're very much a 4-line team, defensive structure. But the way I'm looking at this is we have 2 of the highest scoring teams, right? If for some reason, Vince Dunn or McCann has a great round 1, that's awesome. But I don't think they're going to score for us until the conference finals, where that's where we're going to be unique, where everyone else is grabbing. And you'll see it. You'll draft a similar team to this, and then people are going to take Terry Lehkonen for Colorado. They're going to take Evan Rodriguez, JT Compher. Those are guys that are just much less likely to be to outscore those Seattle guys when they're playing. And if Seattle does beat them, well, all of the teams that are similar to us are now dead because they lost all. But we're going to be just getting ahead of the field. I don't think I'm not going to even try. Like I said, Count MC did a bunch of work, and I can try to post or send a couple more things, but he kind of went through a lot of the lobbies he was in, and Seattle was being drafted at like 0.2%, like any Seattle. So it's more of like, let's get unique with just take the hockey's random, let's get unique kind of strategy.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, I hopped into another one because now I want to, and I am glad we got the 1-3. I think this will probably put us on a different trajectory. There. So, all right, I'm starting to get the bug here. If I can just get to the point where all of these players don't look like it's in Mandarin to me, like the structural concepts I'm on board with. I think I fundamentally understand. I just need to learn some of these goddamn names.
Yeah, I mean, I put the badge rows on the spot all the time to say the names, and I have a lot of fun with Numi and the boys.
Feel free to
pronouncing. I mean, names like Oliver Bjorkstrand.
DJ, I was doing Cajun accents on Monday. You don't think you can pin me out to butchering a name? All right. Trust me.
All right. We'll give it a go as we go along. I don't want to just. All right, we'll just as we go here. I mean, it's one of the three-headed monsters up top. I mean, you're going to do it. Let's see what. We got 2 non-badges, so you never know for sure. I looking yesterday, me and Moods did like 3 drafts in a row, and 2 of the 3, someone took Olmark number 1.
We get past or not? That's fun.
We get past, yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, this is like I said, this is taking Justin Jefferson right here. Except Justin Jefferson.
I was setting up a joke. I was gonna say, man, it feels really good to get the Justin Jefferson here, and you just but you knew. I'm learning.
I knew it already. Yeah, I just think like if you took Justin Jefferson and you said like Minnesota was actually good, so because Boston is number 1. Yeah, I love Pasta. I mean, he doesn't get enough credit for how good he is, and you would think on a team that got 130 points and set an NHL record, it still feels like he's undervalued for some reason.
Love it. All right, I'm stoked on this, and in what you were saying too is that. If good Boston pieces fall to you, you're happy to build that out with him, but you're also fine just using him as like an anchor if people are sniping you and trusting that he's going to help you advance through these rounds and build out maybe even a different final stack.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I think we're gonna be in the awkward situation. I think I always fall in. Yeah, he takes Bergeron. Now I like Marchand more than Bergeron. It's just you're not getting any centers with Boston unless if you take Krejci late, which is fine, but. I think you take Marchand here. We lost the goalie battle. Someone took Olmark and Bergeron. And I just think that that's so much worse. Like in this vacuum, right? I mean, we're playing these 5 other people. The odds that Olmark and Bergeron outscore, I guess Olmark's a bad example, but that goalie versus our goalie, and then Bergeron and anyone else on Boston are going to outscore Pastrnak and Marchand is like 0. It's so hard to see a scenario where that is a better build, which is why I have so little Olmark, because it just isn't going to happen. Like it's going to be.
Would it be like? Yeah, would it be like if someone starts with Giannis and Drew Holiday, and someone else took Brooke Lopez and Chris Middleton, where it's like if the Bucks go to the finals, like isn't the Giannis side dominating you?
I know one of those players.
Wow. Okay, so I'm schooling.
I don't know anything about basketball. No, and the thing, like I like college basketball, okay, but I'm a St. Bonaventure alum, so it's like to me, it's like I watch like my child is plays college basketball, and I watch them the same way you're gonna eventually maybe watch April play sports, but every other team just doesn't matter to me. I don't care.
Gotcha.
That's my basketball. And if you know any Bonaventure alum, or if you ever meet them, they're just like that. We're weird. So
would we play for Colorado Boston final and go with the Colorado goalie or something else?
No. I don't do it personally. It feels unnecessary. Okay. I mean, someone's going to get a really good Colorado looking team, but I don't really care. I think I take the Brusque here normally. Yeah.
So keep loading up on Boston.
I think you get the one. This is what I normally do. I think I get the one more piece here, and then I try to think of a team that's super center dominated. Yeah. I mean, someone's going to get Mikko, Makar, Georgia. That's not that crazy. I thought maybe they had McKinnon, but what is that McKinnon team doing? They had Georgiev right in their lap. I guess they quit. I guess they gave up early. That's fine. But back to the NBA. I know nothing. So
when you get into a puck draft with Peter Overzet, I think a lot of these times the guys just kind of crumble under the pressure. So I think it's understandable. This is around me here.
This is a really, really weird lobby. The goalie, I mean, the Avalanche. This is the Avalanche. I mean, this is the Avalanche.
Goalie Avalanche.
Perfect example. Yeah, they are just everyone.
It
Which
is
fine.
I
mean,
will say, DJ, it's a little ironic that we're in a goalie avalanche after skipping on the goalie for the Avalanche. I just want to point out that. All right, who are we doing here?
I take Kaprizov. I think we get weird with the Western Conference side. If McAvoy continues to fall, maybe, but I like Lindholm more than McAvoy. He took over the power play one role. Like before Lindholm got hurt, this was a potential Norris Trophy winning defenseman, outscoring everyone in fantasy. He comes over from Anaheim as a very good player. Boston only exemplifies his skills more, and I like them both about the same. And I'm just not reaching on McAvoy, who's still just way too high. Like I'm trying to think. It's hard to think of a good example of what McAvoy is. It's kind of honestly, it'd be like taking Dawson Knox at like the third round because you like the Bills. It's like this guy's not going to score enough.
If I post this team on Twitter, will the Twitter eggs reply, "Love your wings"? A little worried about your goalies.
Yeah.
All right.
No, this is actually that's so on brand for you to do this too. It's like it feels like it's all coming together.
Yeah.
Wow. Let's take Hampus, honestly. Or you want to take McAvoy? It doesn't matter. You could take either. I think getting McAvoy might end up being more unique because he never falls as far. And I guess
I got a value hound this. This is like 15 picks past GDP.
This is honestly, picks. I mean, you're doing the wide receiver the wide receiver room with this is all coming together nicely.
All right.
Let me look at the bracket quickly. So what we could do is start to build that Western Conference out. I'm thinking, honestly, Kings or Vegas if Eichel's still there. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, because you could do Vegas, Minnesota, and then kind of go with those goalies. They get a little bit weird because both of them kind of have difficult goalie rooms. But again, you got to kind of just put your flag plan in and say whatever, right? Like if Vegas is really, really good, their goalie probably isn't getting pulled. If they're bad, then they might lose. So to me, it's kind of a tough thing to say. I'm planning for disaster. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think we take Jack Eichel here. Yeah.
I like this. Some other people in the chat, when I was asking about the best long shot bets, people seem to like Vegas as one as well here.
What are the odds? I mean, they're the number one team in the West. Are they that long?
I think they're like plus 1,200 is what I saw.
Jesus. Their problem is goaltending. I mean, it is if you believe in Brossoit, which I think is what's happening now. So basically the long story short on Vegas is they start the year with Logan Thompson. He gets injured. Aiden Hill gets injured. They get down to really no goaltenders. They trade for Jonathan Quick, and then Laurent Brossoit comes back in, and everyone's like, well, Brossoit's and then he's just on a run. And everyone thought that this guy was like not going to play again. So we'll see. We're back on the clock here. So you probably I say you take Marchessault. Oh, how many wings are we going to take though? Either Marchessault or Pietrangelo, defenseman. If you want this will be our last wing though for sure. There's just no way. Yeah.
Who is the defenseman? I don't know how to spell that.
P-I-E.
Oh, right here.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take it.
I mean, whatever.
Dude,
take the last
if
wing.
you're telling me
now we're done on wing.
You told me the wings. Hang on, let me go check my sheet.
Yeah, they are.
Piss and yellow. Well, 0 RB. I mean,
wingers are wide receivers.
Okay, wingers are wide receivers. That's the one. So we are piss and yellow in my mind here.
In theory, yes. Even in the better, yeah. No, I don't think there's any problem with it either because of what we're kind of like you can get very useful centers later. And like I said, like we're kind of in the chamber right now, David Krejci for Boston. I don't know why it's just because they're load managing him. They're not playing him right now. He's not hurt. He's 40 and he retired for a year and then came back. And I don't know. So you grab Pietrangelo here. I think he is, I'm not going to say, I think Matt Moody, who I'm sure is listening, this was his guy. He said, this is the guy that he is drafting at an unbelievably high rate. No one's taking him. Okay. Fair enough.
What's our plan at goalie then? Vegas goalie or is Swayman? Is he a backup goalie?
No, he's a backup. Yeah. So I think you take Brossoit and we can leave it to the chat. So me and Matt, this was our big debate was on Minnesota is it Marc-Andre Fleury or is it Gustafsson? Matt said Gustafson. I kind of think it's going to be Fleury, but if anyone in the chat wants to chime in and give us their Minnesota goalie take, and I know GA's in there. He's a Minnesota fan, so he might be the best view. It's kind of like the longtime Minnesota goaltender, or not the longtime goalie in general, Marc-Andre Fleury, Cup winner, etc. Is he going to continue to take the reins, or is Gustafson, who had just a god-run season, gonna hold on? So this might be where we take Krejci. Honestly, don't worry about goalie. No one's taking him.
Sorry, spell it for me.
KJ, should probably just pull him up. Oh, wait.
Okay.
No, go back. No, go back one. Just type in K.
Quick, tell me.
Be there. Center. I don't even know how to spell. Is he gone? Right, the 5th, 6-1. Krejci.
Did I do it? Nimble fingers, baby. That was stressful.
Oh, it's KREJ. What the heck?
Oh my goodness, DJ. That was whew.
Anyone that knows me knows I cannot spell off the top of my head. that was not even close. Krejci.
I was, because you've been tossing these names. I've been trying to phonetically find them, but that one was dicey there.
That one's tough. Yeah, honestly, I'm literally like, my brain cannot do it. I was easily the worst speller in the spelling bee history. Like, just cannot spell off the top of my head. I have to write it down. I cannot do it. And Matt makes fun of me all the time. He was like winning spelling bees when we were kids, and I was just like, cat. Like, let me write that down.
All right. So back on the goal. Would you ever take both Vegas goalies?
No,
I
don't think so. I think you're just, I mean, if one goalie fails middle of a round, neither goalie are getting there.
The team is,
and that's likely what's going to happen. Unless if there's an injury like last year, they're going to get pulled middle of the round. You score for the entire round. I mean, you're just cutting yourself completely in half. I think you just have to plan for these teams being good.
Yeah, you could have told me to type in David. That was an option, DJ.
That is a really good point. Nah, I decided to look like an idiot instead. It worked out perfectly.
So we got 3 more picks
next.
here. We're at a 2-5-2 build. We're done with wings, I assume.
Yeah. What do we have? We have that. Yeah. So I say we take one of our goalies now. I think we take Brissois, because I'm just a little bit more confident in him starting for Vegas. And some people will be telling you it's Logan Thompson, and if he can come back, they're going to play him. But the run that Brissois is on right now, I just don't know how he doesn't keep it. Quick kind of fell off the map. He's fallen a lot. So I think you take Laurent Brissois. Why
is Quick have a higher ADP?
People are stupid. I don't know.
Okay. All right. That's a good enough solution for me there.
Because people remember 10 years ago when Jonathan Quick was winning Stanley Cups, and don't know that now he can't stop a beach ball normally. So I think that was like a hit the panic button type of situation in Vegas. And I could get the Jonathan Quick situation is actually insanity. Like, I can't, like, so he was on LA, the team he won cups for. They traded him at the deadline to Columbus, and he's like, I really don't want to go there. And Columbus is like, all right, then we'll just take nothing for you. So it was weird. So this is interesting. I like Gustafson over Fleury, I think. You're on the clock. I might go to goalie. Just pull up goalie.
Yep.
Take Philip Gustafson, like the 6th guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I think he's going to end up starting for Minnesota. He's just been too good. I don't know how they pass him up. And then kind of the more of the strategy here is like Brissois starts for Vegas. Even if Fleury starts for Minnesota and loses the net early, I think Gustafson's going to run with it. But this guy's he's been too good this year. I don't know how you pass up on it.
So then how are we thinking? Is Flip a guy that's going, because we need Vegas to make the finals, right? Because that's one of our goalies.
No. I mean, but we missed Boston, so it's kind of like if Minnesota gets there, we could take. I think we take one more Minnesota piece now, and then we sort of
you're
have
saying because we're so heavy on Boston, we would be live for a Boston Minnesota just with one Minnesota piece.
Yeah, we take one more, make it 2, and then we have the goalie.
Gotcha.
So we have, and I think unfortunately, with the Wild, Joel Eriksson Ek is probably not going to come back for the playoffs. So he's dead. Yeah. Oh my God. I feel like you just almost have to take Matt Boldley. He's so good.
Wait, we didn't get Kirill? We didn't get to select the Kyle Pitts? Oh, no.
We did. He's on the team right now. What are you talking about?
Oh, my God. I forgot that we took him. Jesus.
Yeah.
It's been so long. I've aged. I saw that he was gone here, and I didn't remember acknowledging
this was
that
literally
I took the Kyle
like we took the Boston team. I mean, you're outside of the Boston area. I mean, honestly, oh my God, this is tough. You either take Spurgeon and take one more defenseman, or you take Matt Boldley. Yeah, we could just take
another
Spurgeon.
wing.
I don't know. Yeah, let's just take Spurgeon. You're right. I mean, even if Boldley is really good, we need some more positions.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I say we do it. Yeah.
So
this is a unique team for sure.
We got my my fake Boston homerism on tap. We got the Kyle Pitts of hockey on our team, and we pissed yellow via a ton of wings. I mean, I love this team.
Yeah, and I think it checks all the boxes. So number one the number one thing about Boston is you're just not going to get everything. You're not going to get them all. So getting Boston to the finals, I really think you're going to have to. You either get Pasternak or you get Ullmark, and I think getting Pasternak is more valuable than getting Ullmark, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then you just kind of build that other side. Yeah.
Okay. DJ, this was a ton of fun. I really appreciate you being my Sherpa through these Zamboni streets. I linked down in the show notes. You do have a strategy article up on puckluck.com, the keys to the Zamboni. Highly recommend that. I am going to also drop in this sheet, this Google sheet, if you guys would like to get your handy NFL to NHL comparisons. Obviously, your Twitter account. Any other good stuff here where people want to dive in further, what they can go check out?
Yeah, Puck Luck rankings are up now, which are very, very heavy on starting goalies being useful. So don't use them as like I'm drafting in this order. Use them as like start to realize how valuable some pieces are in certain team stacks. My number one thing I really try to tell everyone is like everything I do is just to grow hockey because I really believe this sport is the best. And more people that are watching it, participating, betting. Underdog, I think, has taken more notice and in the hockey streets. I know a lot of the guys are hockey guys, so they're happy to see it. As we grow this sport in these spaces, that's only going to help me. So people often ask, like, well, like, what can I do? Because like you give all this stuff for free. I'm like, just watch hockey, go to hockey. Like it's the only way. We're building something pretty cool on puckluck.com, and I'm really excited about it in general. I think it's going to hopefully start to. We listen to everyone wants all this stuff for NFL and basketball, and it just doesn't exist. There's multiple things that we're listening. We're like, well, what if we just build it in hockey and we just give them the best of everything? I said it when the year started. We have the best ball, everything for hockey. In any sport, I thought we had the best rankings, the best articles, the best strategies. I'd like to think it paid off. So our plan is we're just going to build the best betting community and space in the world for any sport. And if people want to jump in and they want to check out hockey, I think they'll get hooked easily.
Yeah. I love it. And me, the two things too, it's like, I don't even think I'm that big of a football fan. I just love fantasy football. I love drafting teams, and I will completely co-sign with you. I've only been to, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 hockey games in my life. But if you ask me, Pete, what would you if you could go to one sporting event, it'd probably be sitting behind a bench in the Stanley Cup Finals. Like live hockey is by far the best sport to watch live. Yeah. It's not even close.
No, I mean, I often, again, like with football, it's like, it's just never nonstop breaks, nonstop commercials, everything. Like hockey, there are 2 commercial breaks a period, and everything else is action. All 60 minutes, people on the ice hitting each other as hard as possible on knives, just skating around. It's the coolest sport. I played it my whole life. I'm super biased. I still play it today in beer league. I don't know. I love the sport so much. So I really just love to show it to people because I know they're gonna love it too.
Yep. Well, I really appreciate you. It's great having your hockey thought leadership in these streets. Like I said, all of my college buddies have been loving your pick'ems. I know a lot of people in the Underdog community have loved tailing you, even if we troll you when you go on a bit of a downturn. But you are in the green on the season. Yeah. You have been on fire, and so super excited to do the show with you guys. please follow DJ on Twitter. Check out all of his other hockey stuff. We continue to get these hockey contests bigger. Enjoy the NHL playoffs, and I will see you guys in those Zamboni